Good afternoon, guys. This is Mike Sawatsky from North Country Cycle and Sports. Today we're going to show you an overview of winterization for a 4-stroke outboard, a 2-stroke outboard, and some of the products we use to get this done. Our service manager, Brent Richards, is going to go through this procedure, so hope you guys enjoy.
Hello everyone, we have a 200 horse Verado, and I'm just going to go over some of the winterization procedures that we do. First off, what we do, we plug in to the ECM of the motor, and we basically check the run time and the histories of the engine. That way we can give you a printout of how many hours the boat was used, how the boat was used. Then we can proceed and go into and check for faults that might have occurred. So as we can see, we have no faults. On this engine we have 28.3 total runtime. Then we can go into live data. The nice thing about this is I can run the engine, I can check for battery voltage, I can confirm that the motor is charging, I can make sure that all our parameters are good throughout the whole system. Now this not only applies to Verados, it applies to all Mercury products that are fuel injected. The Yamaha engines are very similar, and we do the same for them also. And what we do is we do give a printout. That way if there is any issues that come up, we can give you, a little piece of paper that's going to show you what was there, what we fixed, and what might come up in the future to look out for. And if there's any information regarding updates, this is a good time that we take care of it. So as far as the winterization, generally we start with the gear case after we do the computer check. Now as far as gear oils, Mercury offers two of their highest rated ones. The high performance gear lube, this is the green formulation that's been used for a number of years. This is the Mercury Racing one that's recommended for the bigger Verados, the bigger Mercruiser drives, and racing outboards. Both great oils, both priced very close. In the shop we do use both. For the higher horsepower racing products we do use this one, and in all other outboards we do use the green formulation. The nice thing with both these oils is Mercury puts additives in here that if you ever do get any water into the gear case, it's going to basically provide you more lubrication between service times. So if you use the standard 80-90 oil and you got water going through the bearings, it's going to provide more rust with a standard oil. With Mercury's oil, it's going to give you that longer time. For a few extra dollars per liter, for a very expensive product, it is definitely worth using the gear oil. On Mercury's higher horsepower engines, to do the gear oil, the prop has to be removed. The drain screws in the bottom of the gear case, we let the oil drain out. Now if we do a winterize in this time of year, it takes a long time to get that 90 weight gear oil to come out. So we usually leave the boat in the shop, let it warm up. We pop the screws out right off the bat, the oil starts draining out. Now the next thing is to remove the engine oil. There's two methods Mercury likes to use. There is a drain method, there is a drain screw on the bottom, or you can pump it out through the dipstick. There's controversy whether it's better to do it cold or hot. The one thing is with an outboard, your oil is all down in the sump. So right now that power head is completely drained of oil. So we know the oil's down there. If I go ahead and drain it, most residual oil is down in the sump. If I go ahead and run the oil and get it up to temperature, the biggest issue that we come up with is these filters are mounted upside down on the Verados. Some of the 4-strokes, the way they're mounted, if you take them off hot, the oil leaks down and it provides more of an environmental issue. So that way we have to go in there, clean it, and get it out of there. So the debate is out on what is the best method. Mercury approves both. So once we get the oil out, we change our filter and we start at the fuel system. Now the fuel system of the boat, depending on how big the gas tank is, we got to treat it. We got to use a stabilizer. Mercury offers 3 different bottles. They offer quick care, quick clean, and quick store. This is quick clean, which contains quick clean and quick store. And also Yamaha has a fuel stabilizer. Both great products. I almost feel the Yamaha one is a little bit better. We do use both depending on the outboard. So we go ahead, we treat the fuel system. Now, once we go to run the outboard, that system's in the tank, so we have to run it for a good 15-20 minutes to get that stabilizer into the motor. Now, if somebody brings their boat in and they say that they've already put stabilizer in, that's one step that we can do without, and it speeds the process up. So over on this side, on this Verado, it has a fuel filter holder. Fuel filter's in the top. There's a water sensor, so if any water gets into the system, the water's going to accumulate. It's going to make a contact in that sensor, and it's going to turn an alarm on saying that there's water in the system. So this is a good time. What we do is we pop this out, we take the filter out, we drain it, and we save it in a clean container. That way we can report back to the customer whether there was any water, whether there was debris, anything that comes out of it. If it's clean and spotless, it's good that the customer knows this. Then they've done all that they can do throughout the summer to keep the system clean, and they're doing a good job. Now the filter is changed on a time interval, and that goes across the board for all motors, but it's the mechanic's discretion if the filter's dirty or not. So if it is dirty, we go ahead and change it. If it is still clean and there's minimal hours, we will put it back in. And we also put a little bit more stabilizer into the system. Whether it's a Yamaha, Merc, if we can get into the system to change a filter, we put the stabilizer in here too. That way we have it in the boat, we have it in the motor, we're guaranteed it's getting into the fuel injection system. So once we've got our oils back in it, our gear oil back in it, engine oil, filter, we can actually go ahead and we can run it. Now when we get it up to temperature, a lot of times we'll leave it back on the computer. This is the time we can watch thermostat operation. Is everything working correctly? Is there any runnability issues? We can address it all at that time. Now for a winterize, on the 4 strokes, the best way to fog them is through the spark plug holes. So on a Verado, these back cowls have to be removed. There is 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 fasteners, and this back panel comes out to access the bottom cylinders. So what we do is we go ahead and we pop off these pencil coils, remove the bolts, pull the pencil coils out, remove the spark plugs, and based on our judgment from the hours that are actually on the motor, we'll go ahead and change plugs. So as you can hear, that's a warning horn from the engine as I've went ahead and undid the pencil coils. So that is one warning horn that you will hear if anything ever comes up. A lot of times it'll come on, it's going to go out. Mercury's improved their warning system, so there's not so many variables. So again, spark plugs, we take them out. Mercury makes a great fogging oil. It's going to find its storage seal. Mercury storage seal. Now this is used on 2, 4-stroke and the Verado supercharged engines. Also works in all the other brands, Yamaha, Hondas. It's a very good product. Some cans I found over the years don't spray too well. Mercury's improved this, and the newer cans do seem to spray a lot better. So we'll go ahead and we'll spray some oil into each cylinder. Now, judging on the amount of oil can be detrimental. Some people I've seen will put a whole can into the one cylinder. That's not going to work out for you. The best thing I find is a 2 to 3 second shot. So if I take it and I put the nozzle into the cylinder, I go 1, 2, 3. Go to the next one, 1, 2, 3. Now, part of the fun being a marine mechanic, sometimes you have to make things work. When you take the spark plugs out, you'll see how far that cylinder head actually starts. The straw they give you with the can, it's not going to reach. It's going to spray, it's going to make a mess. So if you're making your own, you have to make a straw longer so that you can actually get the storage oil into the engine. So after you've done your run, after you've checked the computer, you've checked all your systems, you fog the motor, you can take your spark plugs, put them back into the engine, hook everything back up. You can crank the motor over just to disperse that oil. Now, there's a few other areas of the motor that this is a good time to watch out for. What we'll look for is, we'll check ground wires, we'll look for any corrosion that might be present, any areas that wires could be chafed, and it's an extra step that we take to prevent downtime in the summer. So once we verify that everything looks good, we go back to our work order, we check our checklist, make sure that everything's been checked, itemized, engine to engine. There's different things to look out for. 4 strokes, they run a belt on the top, whether for timing or whether for running accessories. On the Verados, it's an accessory belt. This is something that needs to be addressed, needs to be checked. If that fails while you're on the water, you're not going too far. Now, this boat has hydraulic steering. A lot of people overlook hydraulic steering. Seastar is the biggest maker of hydraulic steering and in the boats that are sold around this area. One thing to look out for is the Seastar spec for play in your steering is a 1/4 inch max. When I bleed a system, I like to make sure that I'm at least 1/8 inch. I don't like 1/4 inch, there's still air there. So if you load the motor all the way to one side and push it to the other side, that's your play. So as you can see, this one's a little bit even less than 1/8 of an inch. So now you know the system doesn't have air. You want to know if there's any leaks. So what we look out for is at the driver's helm, we'll crawl underneath, make sure there's no oil stains. Check the hoses. If we have to use a mirror, we're looking for any oil debris. If it's clean, we come to the back, we inspect these seal glands around the ram. A lot of people don't even check these. And if it comes down to a situation where a boat like this that might do 50, 55 mile an hour, you're running down the lake and all of a sudden a jet ski runs in front of you and you go to turn and it takes you 2 full cranks of the wheel to get the boat to turn, bad things can happen. And it happens more often than you think. So seals on both sides, we're looking for any leakage. Hose connections, sometimes these hoses will leak at the connection, the oil will run down here and it'll run into the splash pad. Now if you have an Opti or a 2-stroke and there's oil spilled, sometimes you have oil staining in the splash well. You don't realize that that oil in there could be steering fluid. So it's always good to inspect this system. Check your fasteners. It's great to put an actual socket and a wrench on there and make sure they're tight, but as long as they're visually checked to make sure that they are tight and you have threads visible. The mounting bolts of the engine are another good thing to check annually. You'd be surprised, they do move. A lot of the newer boats are putting a composite material in the transom and it's holding the strength and the torque of the bolt a lot longer. The older boats that have wood, they do loosen off. And you'll see on older boats, you'll see a bit of black residue. And that means that the 2 aluminum pieces have been moving and causing some movement there, and that the dust is what you see. So check those fasteners. Now's a good time to go through, check your fittings, your through-hull connections, your transducers. I see a lot of boats, transducers are barely held on there, the boards are falling off, they need to be fixed up. Might as well get all the stuff done now before the springtime and we have the good weather. This boat doesn't have any plumbing that needs to be addressed as far as winterizing. Now we sell Mercury's antifreeze. Now this is rated quite high against freezing. Some of the RV stuff likes to thin out once it comes in contact with water. So the Mercury one does have a little bit better product in it to prevent that. Now if you had a washdown system, has to be winterized. They are self-draining, but if they're installed improperly, which most of them are from all the major manufacturers, they do need to be winterized. What we'll do is we would go ahead, we would unscrew if it has a pickup screen on it, and we'll attach a hose to the fitting and put a funnel into the hose. Then what we can do is go ahead, turn the switch on, We'll pour the antifreeze into the system. Once the system's pressurized, you can grab the hose, spray it out, and wait till the pink solution starts to come out. That way you know that system is fully treated for the winter. Some boat manufacturers, you do have to winterize their live well pumps. Lund, the way they do them, they are self-draining. It's not a needed thing, but we do check it. If there's any low spot in the line, water sits in that hose, it can actually swell the hose, split the hose. The issue with that lies, next spring you take the boat out, water comes up this line, and it actually has a crack and it's under the floor. The boat actually starts to sink, starts to take on water. A boat like this, it could take anywhere from 3 days to lift all the floors, consoles out to get at the hose, depending on where it's located. So, paying attention to how the hoses are plumbed. This is all part of a boat winterization. One thing I'll say, it's easy to change the oil. There's lots of little things that do get missed. And as long as you're aware and you look out for everything, you'll have many years of good boating to come. I'm going to just go over a couple products just to show I don't have a Yamaha outboard on the go right here. Yamaha does make a marine gear case lube. Very good product as well. One thing I really do like from Yamaha, they make an external engine cleaner and a corrosion spray. Don't use this as much on the marine use, but on quads and snowmobiles, this stuff is amazing. You spray it on, even this time of year, you spray it on suspension components, anything that has corrosion, rust, and that oil seeps in and provides longer protection. When you're going to put the products away, whether it's an ATV or a snowmobile, you spray that on there while it's sitting in the off season, and it just prevents that rust from growing. I showed you the Mercury gear lubes. I'm going to just cover some oils. Now this Verado, Mercury makes a 2550 Verado oil. A lot of dealers like to run the 2540 synthetic blend, which is okay and approved by Mercury, and they'll also run the 2540. The gray area lies, the Verado is a supercharged engine. When you run these things at high RPM, the oil gets hot. The 2550 provides much better lubrication and resisting of the temperature rise. I've seen it firsthand. I've ran outboards with all the oils and watched them, and the Verado oil by far keeps that temperature down. So some of the Mercury outboards, 75s, 90s, 115s, even the 150, each motor calls for a different oil, so just make sure that you do either check with us or check your service manual just to see what oil it does run. Mercury's 10W30, and again the 2540. These are both mineral oils. They're not blended oils. This is the 2540. This came out back in 2007 on the L4NAs, 75, 90, 115s, and it's currently still used. Mercury's newest engines don't call for this oil. It can be used. So Mercury changes up their oils. Yamaha's a lot simpler. They run a 10W30. They do run a heavier weight, 2540. Almost all the outboards for our conditions run a 1030. Gear lube. If you don't have a gear lube pump, we have a large 5-gallon can that we use it for shop use. This is a soft shell container for doing the portable motors. Goes in from the bottom, you squeeze it till it comes out the top, put the top screw in, put the bottom one in, and you're done. For a few dollars, we do sell the gear lube pumps that can screw right into the 1-liter bottles. And this can do stern drives, this can do outboards, this can do everything. Nice thing is, it's great for quads. If you do your own quad servicing, it'll fit into most of the bottles. You can pump the diffs, you can do the transmission, you can do everything. Lots of good use, and they include the Yamaha and Tohatsu adapter. So this will also work on the Mercury outboards. 30 horse and down require this fitting. So this is a great kit, and this is why we bring this one in, is because it includes the fitting. Just quick overview of greases. 2,4-C is Mercury's go-to grease. They also make an extreme grease for severe applications. Yamalub's marine grease is great too. If you're greasing your outboard, you're doing your own winterizing, I do recommend using a good quality marine. Doesn't matter if you use a Merc and a Yamaha or Yamaha and a Merc. They're both good. They're both doing the same job. Just make sure you have a good marine grease. Mercury makes their 2,4-C in a small squeeze tube. This is great for doing small fittings on portable motors, linkages, cables, anywhere that has any pivot point. It's in a nice container and you can get at areas easily. Yamaha does make stabilizers in a small container, which is very nice. It's a one-time use. This treats 5 gallons of gas. There's no guesswork. Pour it in, shake it up, away you go. The bigger bottles are more for the bigger boats. Just showing you here, this is power trim and steering fluid. This is not for hydraulic steering. This is for Mercruiser power steering and power trim on the outboards. This is one thing, definitely check with your manufacturer going brand to brand. You want to make sure you have the right oil for the power trim. Some units use biodegradable oil and they call for specific oil. I got a few cans of paint here. This is Yamaha's color match paint. A lot of people ask, how do they get paint codes to get the paint to touch up their outboards? Well, you'd be surprised that the price of the paint is quite small. Most of these cans are $10 a can, about $1.50 more than a can of trim clad. So if you treat it every year, if you get a raw chip, you can file it out. You can use the primer. You can use the top coat paint. It's going to keep corrosion at bay. It's going to keep the motor looking that much nicer. If you do get corrosion or paint peeling anywhere on the outboard, this paint works great. It flows out really nice and looks really well. I'm going to just show a few differences on an Optimax. Because we're not changing engine oil, we're same procedure for the gear oil, same power trim. If this had hydraulic steering, same treatment. This one's cable steer. As you can see on this side, this cable's pretty dark. When this unit gets winterized, the cable will get cleaned, re-greased, fresh grease applied, just to get more grease into that steering joint. On the side of this outboard, you'll see this is the VST. In here, you have fuel pumps, and you have an incoming and an outgoing side. Fuel filter the same as the Verado. This has to be treated in a special manner. Same thing, fuel stabilizer in the boat. When we go to do the filter, fuel stabilizer in here. Optimaxes can be fogged a few different ways. You can remove the spark plugs and inject fogging oil into the cylinders. You can make a concoction, as it's called, of two-stroke oil, gas, and stabilizer that gets applied to the incoming side of the VST. And there's a few other non-approved ways that I won't even mention how to do it. On some of the Optimax outboards, getting the plugs out can be an hour labor task in itself. So when you're doing a winterize, it's not feasible to go that route. On the smaller 75, 90, 115s, you can get the spark plugs out and you can fog them that way. You can also do them through the VST. If you have any questions, I can tell you the ratios and how to do it. The nice thing about this is when you go to run the outboard, that system gets ran through the whole fuel system, into the injectors, into the engine itself. We can also check this with CDS, and if it was a 4-stroke, we can check it with G3 depending on the engine. The top of this motor, a lot of people don't even realize that these motors have a compressor. This is the lifeline for this engine. If this compressor fails or the belt fails, you are not going anywhere. The motor will not run. So this is a good time to check. You want to check the outside of the belt, each edge. You want to check the inside of the belt. And tension. You want to make sure your tensioner is good. These springs can break. If they lose tension, the belt will shred and it will fail. So this has to be checked. Winterizing is a good time to check it. Again, check over harnesses, wires, take off the panels. Lots of times there can be zip ties holding wires in bad locations and cut wires. A lot of people opt out for a winterize and they'll go for a pre-season tune-up. The one thing is, the way we do winterizing, we do a tune-up and we do a winterize all in one. We're checking everything. The great thing about that is it's a one-time, once a year, and if you have any other issues come up throughout the year, at least you know your service is up to date. For warranty-related items, everything is up to date. If you have any other questions, or any questions at all, please feel free to contact us at North Country Cycle & Sports, and we can help you out. Yamaha and Mercury products. Thank you very much.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you guys found value from this. If you did find value from this, please share, like, comment. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions about anything you saw today, comment below and we will get back to you with the answers. Alright, have a great day, and don't forget to check in tomorrow for, I think, what are we doing, snowmobiles or ATVs tomorrow?
Snowmobiles tomorrow.
Tomorrow we're going to do a service seminar on snowmobiles. So if you want to stop by, stop in at the shop or check out Facebook Live to get all the information on that. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.